little bit different format tonight, and it may take just a little bit longer. I want to spend most of the time talking about our police and fire departments. We don't get into a discussion that much on public safety. We now have completed the implementation of the body cameras for all uniformed personnel. And we deliberately decided to be deliberate about that, if you will. We didn't rush in to do that. We went to school on some other entities and found what we thought was the best solution for us, and I think it's paid off. We have another recruit class academy that's scheduled to graduate very shortly on October 1st. And out of those 8 cadets, we have half of those that are female, so that's first time we can say that, I think, for a recruit class. And there are already discussions about another recruit class as well. I think one of the realities that we're looking at for our police department is that we're getting closer to having annual academies. We're not quite there yet, but we're seeing the need to have police recruit academies on a much more regular basis than we used to. The School Resource Officer Program, we're going to expand that. We have a 3-year grant from the feds to help us expand that program, and we're increasing the number of school resource officers from 8 to 11 in January. This has been a growing program now for several years, but with the partnership is a strong one between the City of Edmond and Edmond Public Schools. I don't know how many times we've heard comments about the schools from how beneficial this partnership is. Basically, it's a 50-50 arrangement with the schools and the city in terms of what we're doing. We have officers at all the high schools and all the middle schools as well, so we feel very fortunate that we're able to move that in that direction, but we have ongoing discussions with the school basically to, as their needs change, we want to be able to adapt to those as well. On crisis intervention teams, now over 50% of our patrol people have attended an advanced mental health training course that is known as a CIT, or Crisis Intervention Team. This ties in exactly with what we're trying to do as a community, and the city's tried to kind of help take the lead on this in establishing a community-wide response to mental health issues. We've been very encouraged by a lot of the feedback we've had from the hospitals, UCO, the Edmond Public Schools, and state entities, and we're all working together to try to see if we can come up with a better resolution for people that have mental health crisis, and better than what we're doing now. So we're encouraged by that. The peer support program has been reconstituted. Again, it provides wellness and resiliency, I think is the word they use, their resources to all of our department members. We recently had another meeting of a homelessness initiative group that we initially started back in, I believe, 2016, 2017, just to frame discussions on what does the homelessness situation look like in Edmond, how can we pool our resources to better address that, and how can we make people aware of what resources are out there so we don't duplicate things. And JD and the police department have kind of taken the lead on reconstituting that and moving it forward. We just had another meeting with that group last week. We also see some partnership opportunities with our mental health group, because a lot of those two concerns definitely have overlapping issues as well. And then the last one, our numbers look good, as you well know, because we give you those monthly reports. I think what we're trying to say is we're happy that they're good, but don't look too hard at those, because the pandemic has changed the dynamics on all of that. And to spend too much time looking at those numbers in comparison to what we had before is not realistic, but nonetheless, they're good numbers as well. We're going to shift into the fire department. In 2020, our department responded to a little over 8,200 incidents, which was an average of 22.6 emergency incidents per day. However, that's a high number, but it actually represented an 8% decline from what we had experienced in the last 6 to 7 years. And again, we think that is also due to some of the variables with the pandemic and a lot of things being shut down during COVID-19. The one decline that we had was the first one we've had in the last 7 years. And in those other years, we saw an annual increase in the number of emergency incidents increase basically on average 6% a year. So that's a pretty healthy increase. Just an update on the incident numbers in the current year. We're on pace in the fire department to have just a little over 9,000 incidents this year in 2021, which would be a 9% increase, which is pretty significant. We continue to partner with EMSA, the EMSA medical director, the other Oklahoma City Metro fire departments in trying to implement new initiatives to put more ambulances on the street and to improve ambulance response times during the pandemic. And as all of you are aware from some of our recent discussions about ambulance response times, the pandemic has strained the entire emergency care system, from first responders to transport to including hospital care as well. It's important for people to remember that these problems that we're experiencing both in the Oklahoma City and Tulsa sections of EMSA are not unique to Oklahoma. These types of situations are occurring in metro areas around the country. So the issues that we're facing, other people are also facing around the country. During the pandemic, our department tried to be innovative in terms of using technology and other ideas to help provide many of our support services, and this has allowed us to continue to carry on our mission and to continue to provide needed services such as virtual public education, tours of the station, demonstrations on apparatus, etc., and even some of our inspections as well. The fire department was a key player in allowing us to have employee vaccination pods during the pandemic, and as you know, we've had several of those, especially earlier in the pandemic, but we also had one recently as well, because we've strongly encouraged our people to get vaccinated. We want to make it as easy as possible for them to get vaccinated. And we were very fortunate to have our fire department paramedics that actually administered those shots. So a key part of our program. Also, as a result of the pandemic, the fire department sought out and actually was successful in being awarded several grants that allowed us to purchase additional IT equipment, personal protective equipment, and also commercial bunker gear extractors that will help us provide services and certainly to keep our personnel safe. Currently, the department is evaluating current fire stations for needed upgrades. We've talked about these for a while. We also talked about that with the sales tax task force a few years ago and the need to accomplish major upgrades to our existing stations. We're working with that as well. We'll have a couple of those that we'll bring to you in the near future. We're also evaluating the need for future fire stations. And I think in this year, well, actually next year, in 2022, Chief Goodwin will bring recommendations for a timeline that we'll have to talk to you about a potential construction of a new fire station number 6. And as you recall, some of you will recall, I can't even remember how many years ago it was, Chris, but it was 6, 8 years ago that the city purchased 2 parcels of land specifically for additional fire stations. Why did we do that at that time? Because we knew the price of land was just going to continue to escalate, and it's going to get harder and harder to find areas that might be appropriate, so we still have those 2 parcels that we're looking at as well. Our department recently finished their what we call ISO, or Insurance Services Office analysis. That actually occurred this past spring. We're now in the process of waiting for our final fire department ratings as a result of that review. It's a comprehensive analysis that's completed basically once every 5 years. And we are hopeful, and we have been working for several years trying to get to improving our overall rating from an ISO 2 to an ISO 1. An ISO 1 is the best rating possible. We think we've got a good shot at it. We hope to have a formal announcement on that sometime in October. We continue to work with the Oklahoma City Fire Department regarding a potential automatic aid agreement with that department, which would provide for joint responses to structure fires in both cities. Obviously, that would be a big benefit to have if we could put that in place. We think we're close to doing that. And our department continues to look at implementing innovative ideas that will help serve our citizens. And recently, they partnered with the EMSA medical director, and we're the only department in the eastern and western divisions of EMSA to implement the new ELIGARD system. It's a CPR device. It's a structure that basically helps stabilize the head and the neck area and makes it much easier to perform CPR services. So we're the first one in the EMSA metro area, in the EMSA areas, that have been able to implement that, and the medical director is looking at this. If this is successful, they intend to apply this throughout the system. Currently, our fire department's also in the process of a recruit academy. We're looking at an academy that would have 12 recruits that we hope will start later this year. In fact, they have already made 12 contingent job offers for that new academy as well. I think it's important to keep in front of the people of our community just how many good things, how many innovative things, how many progressive things are going on in both departments. And one thing that I've talked about, and you probably get tired of hearing me say it, but it's important for all of you to know that the relationship between our two departments, and really it's because of the examples of the two chiefs, it has never been stronger than it is right now. And our community benefits directly from that. As one recent example, we had the Neighbors Night Out program, and we had people from both departments that responded to 9 different events that night in the community. And the partnership between our two departments has never been this strong. And it reflects on the efforts of Chief Younger and Chief Goodwin. So this community directly benefits as a result of that, and you should feel fortunate for that. Let's talk about golf course improvements. Pleased to report that the work has begun on both portions of this major project, which is long overdue. Since we closed the golf course, we sold all the assets that we would not be using in the new clubhouse through the city's auction site. We received over $30,000 in proceeds from that auction. The clubhouse was vacated in late August, and the demolition started September 20th. They actually started moving in a proverbial wrecking ball, I guess, to actually tear down the clubhouse last week. We've had delays already, which we expected on a project of this magnitude, but the transition period out of the clubhouse and how we move forward into the demolition, we believe we're about 45 days behind in terms of where we initially projected we would be in terms of completing the project. However, we anticipate completing both phases sometime next fall, so we're still on target for a general fall opening. The greens and irrigation portion of the golf course project began on the 16th of August. And again, we're subject to delays that we can't control concerning the availability of irrigation parts, which everybody that's in construction already knows about that. We were hoping to get some of the greens actually done this fall, for lack of a better phrase. We don't know that we're going to be able to do that. We may need to move all the greens into next spring, but part of that we can control, part of that we can't. But we appreciate everyone's patience as we go through this. This is a long overdue project for major improvements at the golf course, and it sets the tone for the long-term future of a public golf course within the city as well. The total cost of both of these projects is about $18 million, $13.5 million for the clubhouse portion and another $4.5 million for the green and irrigation piece. We're paying for these improvements as part of the bank financing package that was recently approved for $40 million, and the repayment for that will come from the 2000 capital improvement sales tax. And then the last thing I want to give you an update on is that sales and use taxes. We've now received our third monthly check of the new fiscal year, and this reflects sales during the month of July. During that period, our sales tax revenue increased a little over 10% for the month from the year before. We have budgeted 3.25% growth for the current budget year. Use tax revenue is up about 8.9% for that month from the previous year. That's just slightly below the 10% annual budget projection that we have in place for that. And over the first 3 months of the fiscal year, our combined collections are over 9.7% above where we were last year. So fiscal news remains very good. We feel very blessed and very fortunate. And with that, that concludes my report.